So the main point in the opinion piece that we ran on APTN News Online is that some people in jail or prisons should be released. Who do you think should be released?
Well, when you think about it, Indigenous peoples are grossly overrepresented in prisons. So, and we're only there because of, systemic racism and trying to navigate conditions of poverty, and then our own poverty is criminalized. So if you think of people in prison for things like panhandling or theft of groceries or theft of clothing. And I think we also have to consider how many Indigenous women are in prisons. I mean, it's the fastest growing prison population. Many of them are pregnant. Many of them are mothers. So we're really breaking up families. Now, there's a large category. In fact, the majority of people that are in prisons today are on remand, which means they're sitting in prison waiting for their trial. They haven't even been convicted of a crime yet. Mm-hmm. So imagine the deprivation of liberty and human rights if a massive COVID-19 outbreak is in these prisons, and these people are impacted or lose their lives when they really shouldn't have been sitting in prison anyway. Mm-hmm. And there's a large number also of low-risk people. So people who are in there for things like theft, but not any kind of severe violence to the public. So we're not talking about letting out serial killers. Mm-hmm. We're talking about people who present a fairly low risk to public safety.
You wrote that communities need to be involved, given the fear over the virus. How do you feel that communities would respond to people being sent home from jails or prisons?
Well, here's the thing. So communities need to be involved first and foremost in developing a decarceration plan that determines who is considered low risk. Mm-hmm. And then they have to be involved at the decision-making stage about what supports are needed for the people that are decarcerated. So many of them have homes to go to. They would just be going back to the homes or their families or communities that they were living in. Mm-hmm. While others were in prison for precisely the fact that they don't have homes. So you think about the homeless or people who are precariously housed. They need supports. They shouldn't have been in prison in the first place. They should have been supported. So First Nations communities and others in urban areas need resources to be able to help these people to be able to come back home and be under what's called a community of release, for example.
Mm-hmm. Are we seeing any movement towards this decarceration, the whole concept of it?
Yeah, in fact, we are. There are certain jails across the country who have decided to let go what they consider to be low risk. We don't know who's all in that category, people who are on remand, and they're also diverting people. So people that are currently before the courts are not being remanded into custody for smaller offenses. They're being given a trial date at another area. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important. I mean, this is in line with what international recommendations are to use these alternatives. This is something that the Supreme Court of Canada, in fact, said, 20 years ago, that we should be looking at alternatives to prison, especially for Indigenous peoples. And it's the Justice Minister in Newfoundland has also said that they're going to come up with a plan to decarcerate some of these people, which includes things like early release, parole. So it's not just like opening the doors and everyone just runs out. It's a real strategy that's based on protecting public safety, but maintaining the health and human rights of Indigenous peoples in prison.
Well, and it only took a pandemic, I guess, for us to get moving on this. Thanks, Pam, for sharing your thoughts and for that op-ed that is on aptnnews.ca.
Thank you.